Welcome to this explainer. You know, when we think of the FIFA World Cup, we usually picture this totally predictable stage, right? A stage just completely dominated by established, larger-than-life superstars. But actually, history is rarely ever that clean. Today, we're diving into the 1962 World Cup in Chile. And spoiler alert, this tournament was definitely not a predictable procession for the heavy favorites. Instead, it became this absolutely thrilling, kind of chaotic theater for unexpected characters. We're talking about players who were just waiting in the wings or fighting against all odds, who suddenly seized their fleeting moment in the spotlight. So let's dive right in by looking at the massive, dramatic vacuum that was created literally right at the start of the tournament. Imagine being a 22-year-old Brazilian player named Amarildo, facing an almost mythical burden. As he put it, I was the replacement for the irreplaceable. He was talking, of course, about the world's absolute greatest player at the time, Pelé. We really need to unpack what happens when the undisputed star of the show abruptly leaves the stage, and exactly how an underdog reacts when fate just suddenly calls his name.
Section 1. The World Cup without Pelé. Amarildo's burden.
Let's just picture the seemingly impossible task handed to this young Brazilian understudy when his nation's dreams were suddenly entirely on the line. You can really feel the crushing weight of this situation. On one hand, you have Pelé. Back in 1958, he introduced himself to the world and practically won the trophy for Brazil. Coming into '62, he was a massive global superstar. But just 25 minutes into Brazil's second group match against Czechoslovakia, Pelé fired a shot, hit the post, and immediately turned to the bench in sheer agony. He had torn a thigh muscle. And since there were absolutely no substitutes allowed back then, his tournament was just over. Now, contrast that devastating loss with Amarildo. Here's a 22-year-old backup from Botafogo, abruptly thrust onto the pitch to bear the massive pressure of an entire nation. As he later described it, he had to adopt a mata-mata mindset, literally do or die. So how exactly do you handle that kind of do or die pressure? Well, if you're Amarildo, you handle it brilliantly. In Brazil's must-win match against a really formidable Spanish team, Brazil actually fell behind. The pressure must have been completely suffocating. But Amarildo didn't just participate out there. He took over. First, he met a pinpoint cross from his teammate Zagallo to just smash home a first-time equalizer. Then, with a mere 8 minutes left on the clock, and Brazil really running out of ideas, Garrincha floated across to the back post. Amarildo rose up and headed home the 82nd minute winner, entirely securing Brazil's spot in the quarterfinals. The replacement for the irreplaceable had just single-handedly kept the reigning champions alive.
Section 2. Chile's divine left foot. Lionel Sanchez.
All right, let's shift our focus away from the Brazilian camp over to the host nation, where we meet one of the most uniquely colorful characters to ever step into the World Cup spotlight. The lore surrounding Lionel Sanchez is absolutely wild. See, he wasn't just a football player. His roots were actually in the ring. He was the son of a South American featherweight boxing champion and spent his childhood training in a boxing gym alongside the pros. And that visceral, gritty boxing background directly fueled his fiery and fiercely competitive footballing style. In fact, during a notoriously brutal match against Italy, which is now known as the Battle of Santiago, an Italian player brutally hacked him down. Sanchez relied on pure muscle memory, popped right up, and landed a vicious, picture-perfect left hook right on the guy's jaw. But incredibly, it was his left foot, not his left hook, that ended up making history against the Soviet Union. So picture this. In the quarterfinals against the Soviet Union, Chile wins a free kick right on the edge of the box. Everyone completely expected right-footed Jorge Toro to take it. Instead, Sanchez turns to him and says, "Leave it to me. I've got a feeling something's going to happen." He steps up and drills this thunderous strike straight past the formidable Soviet goalkeeper, Lev Yashin. We're talking about the legendary Black Spider, and he barely even moved. The whole stadium erupted, prompting the iconic Chilean radio commentator Julio Martinez to absolutely scream into his mic, "Divine justice." The hosts had just stunned the European champions, all thanks to a boxer with a magical left foot. Section 3. The Angel with Bent Legs. Garrincha's Magic. Let's transition over to another Brazilian hero who proved he was far more than a predictable one-trick pony when the pressure really mounted in the semifinals. There is a brilliant bit of dramatic irony here. Listen to this quote from Lionel Sanchez. Yep, the very man we just talked about, speaking about the Brazilian winger Garrincha. Now, Garrincha was world-renowned for his dazzling dribbling and his utterly lethal right foot. So, when Brazil met Chile in the semifinals, the Chileans naturally thought they knew exactly how to defend him. Force him to his left, right? Well, In the 9th minute, a loose ball fell to Garrincha on the edge of the box, and he unleashed a thunderous, half-volleyed strike into the top corner with his left foot, as Sanchez admits right here. We knew he was really strong on his right foot, but we had no idea he had a left foot. It's crazy. Garrincha ended up scoring twice in that match, ultimately eliminating the host nation 4-2. But he was also sent off with a red card in the 83rd minute, which meant he would definitely miss the final. But get this. Astonishingly, the Chilean fans were so utterly captivated by Garrincha's beautiful, joyful style of play that they, the very nation he had literally just knocked out of the tournament, backed a petition demanding that FIFA allow Garrincha to play in the final. They even had their own president leading the charge. And you know what? It actually worked. He was cleared to play.
Section 4. 100 Seconds of Immortality.
Okay, this brings us to the final and the ultimate underdog story of Czechoslovakia. Before a ball was even kicked, this incredible piece of dramatic irony unfolded. The brilliant Czechoslovakian goalkeeper William Šrojf, who had conceded almost nothing throughout the entire tournament, was officially awarded the title of the tournament's outstanding goalkeeper. The catch? They gave it to him before the final match against Brazil even began. Now, obviously, it's a prestigious honor. But as we're about to see, receiving it right before the absolute most consequential and tragic 90 minutes of his entire career casts a really long, fascinating shadow over what happened next. It's honestly hard to overstate just how rapid and chaotic the heartbreak of this final really was. Right in the 15th minute, the incredible Czechoslovakian midfielder Josef Masopust makes this brilliant run and scores, giving the massive underdogs a shocking 1-0 lead. For a brief, shining moment, they were literally touching immortality. But just 100 seconds later, less than 2 minutes, Amarildo strikes back to equalize. And after that, the momentum just shifted entirely. Zito headed in a goal in the 69th minute, and Vavá totally sealed it in the 78th. Masopust's dream of lifting the trophy was crushed almost as quickly as it materialized. Section 5. Seizing the Spotlight. Amarildo's Triumph. So, how exactly did Amarildo, the young understudy, manage to completely erase Czechoslovakia's lead in just 100 seconds and basically win the World Cup? It all came down to brilliant tactical awareness. See, earlier in the tournament, Brazil's physio, Paulo Amaral, had noticed a fatal flaw in the acclaimed Czech goalkeeper, Šrojf. Amaral told Amarildo that whenever wingers come down the side, Šrojf almost always steps off his line because he's anticipating the cross. So, flash forward to the final. When Amarildo finds himself deep on the left flank nearing the goal line, he remembers that exact tip. Instead of crossing, he notices the gap, channels his inner Pelé, and just shoots from a completely improbable angle. Šrojf was totally caught out, stumbled backward, and the ball flew right past him at the near post. And to make matters worse, later on, Šrojf's tragedy compounded when he lost a high cross in the setting sun, fumbling it to gift Brazil their 3rd goal. Amarildo had completely outsmarted the tournament's best keeper. So what does this all mean for us? The absolutely crucial point here is this concept of a historical vacuum. It's what happens when the sudden absence of a guaranteed superstar creates the necessary space for unknown or totally unexpected players to step out of the shadows and forge their own lasting legacy. Football history, and honestly history in general, is rarely ever written by the favorites when everything just goes perfectly to plan. It's written by the Amarildos of the world, the people who are uniquely prepared to fill the void the exact moment the universe demands it of them. Which leaves us with one final, pretty important question. When the irreplaceable step down, will you be ready to step up? You see, the 1962 World Cup wasn't actually the story of Pelé. It was the story of those who absolutely refused to let his absence be an excuse. Amarildo didn't just replace the irreplaceable, he etched his own name into immortality. Keep that fiery underdog spirit in mind the next time a sudden void opens up in your own life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.